Title: Mind Your Mindset, Michael Hyatt Slug, Mind Your Mindset Michael Hyatt Tags. Book Summary. Excerpt, Category, Self-Help. Author, Matthias Pupa. Published date, 2024-0503T12:44:15.598Z. Image. /src/assets/book_images/mindshift_breakthrough obstacles to learning and discover your hidden potential, BarbaraOakley.jpg. If you like the book, you can purchase it using the links in the description below. By buying through these links, you contribute to the blog without paying any extra, as we receive a small commission. This helps us bring more quality content to you. Book link. Click here https://www.amazon.com/gp/search?E=UTF-8 and tag =Matthew-SPUP0A20 and link, code =ER2 and link, it =4410b5258777ab397377c2b5e60711c1a and camp =1789 and creative =9325 and index =books and keywords =mind your mindset Michael Hyatt. Your thoughts shape your reality and outcomes more than any other factor. Changing your mindset opens up new possibilities. The book uses latest brain science and cognitive psychology research to show how thought patterns form and how to reshape them. Practical steps and strategies are provided. We often tell ourselves limiting stories that restrict our progress and potential. The book empowers you to form new thought pathways and control negative thinking. Endorsers praise the actionable insights and note the book can transform your perspective in business, relationships, and personal growth. Changing your internal narrative fuels greater achievement and happiness. Managing your mindset is a core skill for high achievers. Readers say the book delivers an approachable yet profound understanding of how the mind works and how to direct it for success. In summary, the book teaches how to reshape thought patterns and beliefs through cognitive strategies, in order to change one's outcomes and unlock hidden potential in life and work. Endorsers say it provides powerful and life-changing principles. Megan and Joel adopted two boys, Moses and Jonah, from Uganda who had experienced early life trauma and complex challenges. When they brought the boys home, they struggled greatly with behavioral problems they didn't understand. Parenting strategies that worked before did not work. Megan felt at her wit's end and didn't think they could continue. That's when she learned about TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention, a trauma-informed approach. Attending a talk on TBRI was revelatory. It described situations just like their own boys and explained why previous approaches had failed. The key insight was that the brain is central. Trauma disrupts neural patterns and creates unhelpful coping strategies and behaviors. Megan embarked on learning about neuroscience and trauma to better understand and help her boys. She realized many challenges stem from implicit thought patterns and stories shaped by past experiences. Both the boys and Megan and Joel had developed unhelpful narratives due to THR experiences that led to difficulties, showing how the brain affects all of us. Understanding this was the difference maker. The passage discusses how people's brains form faulty connections and unhelpful stories based on prior experiences that can prevent them from achieving their desired results. It notes that this dynamic is true for everyone in various situations and contexts. It then provides an anecdote from the author's experience as a CEO where he discovered his narrative about missing a financial target was limiting his team's ability to perform better going forward. His narrative had placed the cause out there in external factors rather than considering what was in here within their own leadership and strategies. The passage explains that while taking action is important, people with a high achievement bias tend to jump straight to strategies and execution to solve problems, missing an important invisible step of examining and questioning their underlying narratives and stories that shape how they perceive issues. Improving strategy and execution can only go so far if the original narrative is flawed or limiting. Examining one's narratives is a crucial piece often overlooked. The passage discusses how stories drive our strategies and ultimately our results. It argues we need to examine the underlying stories we tell ourselves about problems to develop effective strategies. Often our stories are invisible to us or we take them as settled facts without deeper interrogation. But these stories can limit our thinking and solutions. It proposes a three-step method. 1. Identify the problem in your story about it. 2. Interrogate the story by separating facts from inferences. 3. Imagine something that works better once the faulty story is exposed. Interrogating stories can be unsettling but is important to arrive at innovative solutions and extraordinary results. The brain has the ability to rewire itself and imagine new pathways when presented with revised narratives. Coaching is helpful for questioning the stories we tell ourselves and challenging underlying assumptions to see problems in a new, more empowering light. This opens up opportunities for personal and professional growth. So in summary, the passage discusses how our narratives drive strategy and results, and proposes examining and reframing limiting stories as a path to more effective problem-solving and performance. The brain relies on familiar neural connections and finds safety in certainty. Questioning long-held beliefs can feel threatening. However, being open to uncertainty allows for creativity, new possibilities, and more effective problem-solving as situations change. Refusing to rethink strategies leaves one unprepared to address challenges. The narrator refers to the part of our minds that narrates experiences and makes sense of the world through stories and explanations, not just facts. However, the narrator can become a saboteur by imposing limiting beliefs and self-fulfilling prophecies. Judea Pearl discovered people tend to answer why rather than just stating facts, showing our innate desire to understand causation and establish meaning. Our knowledge consists mostly of explanatory stories, not just facts. We are wired for narratives from an early age as babies must learn to make sense of their world. The narrator plays a key role in shaping one's understanding of oneself and capabilities. Learning to identify and challenges the narrator's stories can enable personal growth. Chael's granddaughter Naomi is 2 years old and learning new ideas and making connections very quickly. She has connected the concepts of her grandfather, Gandhi, his boat, and the lake they go to together. At bedtime, she mentions book titles and connects it to asking for a story by saying, "You read the book, please." Naomi is acquiring new concepts and understanding how they connect based on her everyday experiences and contexts. Her brain is linking ideas together through neural connections forming patterns. This helps her understand and anticipate events. Even before she can verbally express ideas, Naomi is gaining a sense of cause and effect relationships between concepts like dropping food and being told no. Her curiosity shows her drive to connect ideas and understand the logic between concepts as her verbal skills develop. So in summary, the passage discusses how Naomi as a toddler is rapidly learning new concepts and connections through everyday experiences, showing how the brain links ideas together through neural patterns to build understanding. One theory is that conscious thought occurs when information from inside or outside the brain becomes salient enough to demand our attention. The brain is constantly having subconscious conversations between different regions. When something hits our senses that affects safety or curiosity, these conversations converge loudly enough to reach conscious awareness. This aha moment shows up as a spike in P3 brain waves during scans. It indicates when we become aware of something and consciousness lags behind actual experiences. Unconscious processing constantly feeds our conscious mind with thoughts and emotions. We aren't aware of where they come from, they just appear. This helps guide our actions and decision-making. However, the unconscious narrator doesn't always get things right and may work against us at times by forming inaccurate stories and assumptions. We need to be able to challenge the narratives it presents. Our assumptions and the purposes of our stories shape how we interpret information and events. This in turn impacts our resulting strategies and performance. It's important to examine the assumptions driving our internal narratives. The hippocampus facilitates two main types of memory, episodic and semantic. Episodic memory involves personal, experienced events, while semantic memory involves factual knowledge. Episodic memories can take on a sense of objective truth over time after being replayed in the mind, even if factually inaccurate. This shapes the stories we tell about ourselves and the world. Our memories and beliefs are heavily influenced by the network of relationships and communities we are part of. We rely on information passed along from others to fill gaps, even if it contains faults. Being able to explain new experiences through existing stories and memories in our brain triggers a reward response, reinforcing those stories and assumptions. This leads to default explanations and scripts even when incorrect. While mostly reliable, this can make it difficult to recognize when our thinking is off track. Unraveling unhelpful long-held stories and assumptions takes significant challenging of existing narratives through new experiences over time. The author describes their fears about public speaking as threatening but also inevitable, like they couldn't escape it. They had two conflicting stories, one of fear and one of inevitability. These stories collided when the author's speaking coach friend Michelle reached out to help after the author confessed their fear of public speaking via a dam-breaking text message at the airport. The author was crying because they had hidden their fear due to shame. They were tired of living limited by their fear and not being able to take opportunities. Michelle and their team then proposed the author give a keynote speech to 1,000 people in just 3 months. The author felt there was no turning back from facing their fear, even if they wanted to, as their team and destiny were pushing them forward. They had to choose to overcome the fear or watch their life get smaller by avoiding opportunities. Our brains are constantly trying to make sense of new information by connecting it to familiar concepts and past experiences. This allows us to form stories or narratives to explain and predict events. However, these stories are just our brain's best guesses or representations of reality, not reality itself. They can be influenced by biases, inaccuracies in perception, changing contexts, and guesses about what others are thinking. When situations are simple, our brain's representations are usually accurate. But more complex situations involve layers of guesses that could lead us astray. This is especially true for guessing what others are thinking, theory of mind. Our perceptions and knowledge involve both facts and the causal glue of interpretations and relationships we use to understand facts. Stories blend facts with imagination and assumptions. Goals and motivations can also shape the narratives we form. While storytelling is useful, it's important not to mistake our stories for objective reality when complex social and mental elements are involved. Representations from our brains are fallible approximations, not facts. Here is how I would summarize Hugh Hare's response to being told he would never climb mountains again after losing his legs. Rather than accepting the doctor's prognosis, Hare was determined to prove them wrong. He refused to believe that losing his legs meant losing his ability to climb. With his background and experience as a climber, he was convinced that the real limitation was the inadequacy of prosthetic technology, not his own capabilities. Hare set about designing specialized prosthetic legs that would allow him to grip and scale rock walls as he had before. Within months, he was back climbing mountains, achieving feats even greater than what he was capable of with his original legs. His mechanical legs ended up enhancing his climbing skills in some ways. Hare's response demonstrated tremendous resolve, ambition and problem-solving skills. Rather than seeing his disability as restrictive, he viewed it as a challenge to overcome through innovative engineering. He rejected limiting assumptions and believed in his ability to achieve his goals through adapting his strategy and tools. His comeback ultimately proved the doctor wrong and inspired many others facing physical limitations. Our stories and narratives that we form to understand life are not always completely accurate. We automatically form stories unconsciously and they are shaped by our assumptions and purposes. We may leave out or not notice details that don't fit the narrative. The narrator in our mind is limited and not omniscient. This can leave us stranded or frustrated if our strategies based on our stories aren't working. When the authors Joel and Megan were trying to help their boys, it took years to get the right answers because their assumptions about parenting were flawed. The first step to examining our stories is to establish just the objective facts, separate from interpretations, emotions, conclusions or guesses. We need to question if our perceptions and thoughts are truly facts or assumptions. There may be gaps in our understanding or confirmation bias. After clarifying the facts, we need to determine if we properly understand how the facts fit together. We should check if we are missing any important details. Optionally, explaining our thinking to others can help test our story. Metaphors are also like shortcuts in our thinking that may be incomplete. Interrogating our narratives is important when we are stuck to gain a better picture of reality. Metaphors can be useful for understanding problems in new ways, but they can also limit our perspective if we see the situation only through the lens of the metaphor. Once we commit to a certain metaphor, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's important to interrogate metaphors and language used to explain situations. Pay attention to the metaphors and recast explanations without metaphors to get a clearer picture. The words and language we use shape stories we tell about situations. Disempowering language reinforces negative stories, so using more positive language like get to instead of have to can change one's attitude and performance. Stories and models are context-dependent. What works in one situation may not apply in a changed context, as Lego discovered when applying business principles from other industries. Many contextual factors like location, competitors, demographics, etc. can change and affect the accuracy of one story. It's critical to recognize when the underlying context has changed, as one story may no longer match reality. This is why universal principles from another situation may not translate well if contextual factors are different. Constant interrogation and adjustment of one story is important. Enterprise relies on scientific intuition, hypotheses, guesses, etc. initially before conducting rigorous experiments. Scientists must believe something is true or untrue to motivate doing the difficult experimental work to prove it. While science aims to be objective, the early hypothesis formation process relies on more subjective thinking like intuition. Scientists then have to present their work objectively for others to evaluate it. There is a difference between the private, subjective side of formulating hypotheses versus the public, objective side of presenting conclusions. Both intuition/subjectivity and objectivity have important roles to play in the scientific process. Intuition guides hypotheses, while objectivity through peer review and the publication process helps guard against false conclusions. When formulating hypotheses, subjective factors like biases and preconceived ideas can influence scientists' thinking and lead them to make illogical leaps. Showing their work helps make the process more objective and exposes flaws. So in summary, while science aims for objectivity, the early intuitive/subjective stage of hypothesis formation is still important. Presenting work objectively helps ensure conclusions are valid by subjecting hypotheses to scrutiny from others. Both subjective and objective thinking have key but separate roles in the scientific method. Intuition provides a gut feeling or assessment when we can't quantify or fully explain our reasoning. It comes from unconscious processing in the brain and patterns recognition. Intuition answers questions like what is most likely true? Or what will likely happen next? Based on information we can't consciously articulate. Intuition can be valuable when situations are complex with a lot of data, interconnected details, shifting definitions, etc., where conscious reasoning gets overwhelmed. It provides a quick yes/no assessment. Intuition is also important when we face influential people trying to convince us of a story, when our doubts about a story can't be explained, or when time pressures don't allow for full conscious analysis. Even when we do extensive interrogation of options, some level of intuition and trusting our gut is needed to make a final decision when full certainty can't be achieved but a choice still needs to be made. Effective leaders are comfortable making decisions with only 65 to 70% certainty after consulting advisors, weighing risks of being wrong versus costs of delay, rather than waiting for 100% certainty which may never come. Some level of intuition and trust in our assessment is inevitable. Intuition is a form of knowledge based on one's experiences and assumptions. However, intuition can also be limited by a person's experiences and biases. While intuition can sometimes lead to the right decision, it is best not to rely solely on intuition, especially in areas where you have little experience. It is important to interrogate your intuition and be aware of potential biases. Michael took a risk by deciding on a trade show without all the information. It turned out to be very successful. However, it also could have failed given the unknown factors. Intuition alone is not always reliable. Even successful people's intuition can sometimes lead them astray if not checked against other perspectives and data. Megan learned this lesson the hard way when she heavily relied on her intuition to hire a candidate who ended up being a poor fit. It is best to balance intuition with reason, collecting as much relevant information as possible before making major decisions. Seeking different perspectives can also help identify potential biases in one's intuition. While intuition should not be ignored, it is prudent to interrogate it rather than relying on it alone, especially for high-stakes decisions. George Kurian, the CEO of NetApp, had to learn to go from meticulously double-checking all his engineering formulas to making decisions more quickly under time constraints and without full certainty as an executive. His brother and father, who were also executives, taught him that executives have to deal with a wider breadth of issues compared to engineers. Executives cannot always wait for full certainty before making decisions. When Kurian took over as CEO of NetApp, there were many voices doubting him. He had to make difficult decisions like layoffs without having all the answers. Somewhere along the way, he learned you don't need certainty to be effective or successful. Challenging long-held beliefs and stories can be intimidating and create uncertainty, which the brain dislikes. However, examining stories is important to find new solutions. Risk is unavoidable in life, and taking calculated risks can lead to better outcomes on the other side of uncertainty. So in summary, George Kurian had to learn to be comfortable making decisions more quickly under time pressures and without full certainty, as an executive deals with a broader range of issues than an engineer where answers are not always black and white. Challenging beliefs creates uncertainty but can help find new solutions. Our ability to make sound judgments is not as solid as we think, as our understanding is based on limited direct experience and the experiences of others. Even established principles may not apply in new contexts, so we should be willing to rethink things with new evidence rather than assume absolute certainty. Since the Enlightenment, empiricism and rationalism have shaped our view that scientific inquiry can provide absolute certainty, but even established scientific theories like Copernicus have later been proven incomplete or replaced. Knowledge is always provisional given our limited information. While science is valuable, it does not provide perfect or complete understanding. We must maintain humility about what we think we know for sure. Many of our beliefs and stories are interconnected like strands in a web. Questioning one idea can feel threatening, as it may seem to undermine other related beliefs. However, most of our systems of beliefs are resilient, and replacing one story need not undermine the whole web of beliefs. We should continue interrogating our ideas rather than stopping thought prematurely. The passage discusses how our brains tend to prefer familiar neural pathways and think in patterns based on past experiences, making it difficult to consider new ideas or possibilities. An example is given of how the author initially doubted having much in common with people from different cultures, showing how past experiences shaped his view. A key turning point was a new experience at a conference that created new neural connections and allowed him to form a different story about finding common ground across cultures. The brain favors familiar routes, so to think different thoughts we need to get off well-traveled neural pathways and form new connections through experiences that disrupt routine thinking patterns. Several techniques are introduced to help overcome the brain's reluctance to change, such as starting with an openness to possibility rather than limiting self-statements, and using curiosity and actively engaging different perspectives to rewrite our stories. The main ideas are that our brains prefer established thinking routes based on past experience, but we can develop new perspectives by disrupting routines through fresh experiences, questioning assumptions, and maintaining an openness to other possibilities rather than limiting self-talk. Forming new neural connections allows for rewriting our internal stories. The passage discusses techniques for developing a mindset of possibility and flexibility to overcome limiting beliefs and thinking patterns. It encourages self-awareness by noticing one's words, emotions and thought patterns in response to situations and problems to identify underlying limiting stories. When a limiting story is identified, it can be replaced with a more empowering and possibility-oriented story. Examples of limited versus possibility-oriented statements are provided. Asking open, possibility questions focused on solutions and opportunities rather than just problems can help expand one's imagination. Examples of possibility questions are given. Pushing back on commonly accepted stories and norms through techniques like embracing seemingly crazy ideas, counterfactual thinking, and contemplating paradoxes can help break old patterns and form new connections. Divergent thinking, looking at problems that have no obvious single answer, is encouraged to help envision how something seen as impossible may still be possible with limited resources. The passage suggests developing a willingness to nonconformity and question accepted ways of thinking in order to spark creativity and breakthrough ideas. The passage discusses how to come up with novel and creative ideas for stories. It notes that children often have very imaginative solutions to problems, even if they may not be practical. Adults tend to generate more realistic ideas but lack novelty. Brainstorming sessions typically start with obvious ideas that lack creativity. True novel ideas only emerge once someone suggests a crazy option, which gets people thinking more creatively. The passage outlines techniques to spark creativity, like asking what-if questions, adopting a beginner's mindset, and combining ideas in new ways. It also emphasizes treating new story ideas as experiments rather than final products. This reduces resistance by allowing people to change ideas based on feedback without committing to something indefinitely. Experimentation is key to refining ideas through an iterative process. Although initial attempts may not work, they provide valuable feedback to improve the story over time. The goal is learning through experimentation rather than trying to prove existing ideas right. This helps generate novel yet relevant solutions by challenging current assumptions. The passage discusses the importance of getting outside input and perspectives to help improve your thinking and problem-solving abilities. It uses the example of Albert Einstein, who stagnated later in his career because he stopped listening to new ideas from others. Even geniuses cannot think of enough new solutions on their own over a lifetime. The author explains how she improved her public speaking by getting help from a therapist, doctor, speech coach, content experts, and life coach on her team. Outside perspectives help to address gaps in her knowledge and skills. It's difficult to critique your own thinking since you only have your own experience, so others can provide insights you can't see due to having different experiences and viewpoints. Seeking coaching and advice from experts can help diagnose flaws in thinking and improve performance. Research on talent development shows that practice alone is not enough, you need feedback from others to progress. Outside input is important for leadership as well, as continual learning and improvement requires being open to new perspectives. Getting comfortable with advice helps leaders stay on top of their field. The passage discusses the importance of feedback, coaching, and gaining outside perspectives to improve as a leader and drive organizational growth. Some key points. Athletes, musicians, and doctors who receive specific feedback from coaches on their mistakes are better able to learn and improve from their experiences. Without feedback, progress slows or stops. Leaders must continually develop to guide their organizations in new directions. They need outside coaching and feedback to challenge their thinking and generate insights they can't achieve alone. Lateral thinking from interacting with others in different fields can spark creative solutions and ideas. Historical examples like Bell Labs illustrate how informal conversations across specialties lead to breakthroughs. Cultural and institutional blind spots prevent insiders from seeing invisible obvious solutions that outsiders view as common sense. Research shows problem-solving benefits from diverse, non-expert perspectives. Leaders should proactively seek input from those with different backgrounds to gain new perspectives on challenges and avoid being limited by their own assumptions or experiences. Diverse teams are better able to arrive at complex, integrative solutions. The key message is that external feedback, coaching, and gaining outside perspectives is critical for continuous self-improvement as a leader and driving innovation in organizations. Insiders need outsiders to challenge assumptions and see problems in new ways. The passage discusses how taking breaks from actively trying to solve a problem can help lead to creative insights and solutions. When we consciously focus on a problem, we rely on analytical thinking, but we can get stuck. However, our subconscious mind continues working on the problem even when we're not actively thinking about it. It refers to examples like Thomas Kuhn having an aha moment while gazing out a window after struggling with a text, and the author himself solving a writing problem overnight after going to bed. Our brains continue making connections between ideas and experiences even when we're not focusing on the problem. It explains that our brains have two neural networks, the executive network for conscious, analytical thinking, and the default network for more creative, novel thinking driven by the subconscious. To solve problems creatively, we need to engage the default network by taking breaks from intense, focused thinking to allow the subconscious to work. Historical figures like Da Vinci are cited as taking unexpected breaks from their work to let ideas percolate subconsciously. The key is letting the mind continue working on a problem even when we consciously shift our attention elsewhere for a while. Leonardo da Vinci old sometimes appeared to be doing nothing, just lost in his own thoughts, which frustrated his patron who wanted him working constantly. However, Da Vinci argued that the greatest geniuses sometimes accomplish more when they work less, as they are using that time to conceive new ideas and inventions in their minds. Even when not physically working, their minds are still actively searching, imagining, and forming new ideas. This allows problems to be solved subconsciously. The key idea is that conscious thought exposes challenges, but the unconscious mind continues working in the background, making new connections and eventually having aha insights. Effectively, problem solving requires alternating between focused, executive thinking about the problem, and then letting the default network take over subconsciously during periods of rest. This allows different neural pathways to make new connections to the concepts. Brief periods of exercise can further boost creativity by enhancing neurotransmitters, brain cell growth, and cognitive function, preparing the brain for more insights when default network thinking resumes. Being relaxed and playful in your approach to a problem can help stimulate subconscious thought processes and lead to insightful discoveries. Taking breaks from directly thinking about an issue allows the default network in the brain to continue working on it unconsciously. Activities like rest, play, idleness are not unproductive for problem solving. They relieve stress, allow the mind to operate in its default mode, and facilitate deeper, slower thought processes. Sleep is also important, as the default network is still very active during sleep, especially REM sleep. Sleep helps consolidate memories and allows the brain to make new connections that lead to insights. Lack of sleep hinders cognitive function. Naps and engaging in hobbies or thinking about unrelated topics while giving the problem a break activates the default network. This seemingly counterintuitive approach of indirect, relaxed thinking can facilitate breakthroughs as the subconscious continues processing. Small, adjacent steps of thinking about related topics or making nearby connections through casual discussion can lead to significant discoveries and creative solutions, without needing to directly confront the problem the whole time. Thinking in this indirect, wandering way engages the default network. Renee is a mom who re-entered the business world timidly after focusing on her family. Though her contributions were good, she saw herself as an outsider. At an industry conference, she had an aha moment where she realized her outsider perspective was actually an advantage rather than a hindrance. This insight arose suddenly based on neural connections her brain had been making unconsciously over many months or years. It erupted into her consciousness as a new, empowering idea. This new narrative helped Renee see herself differently, as a leader in her industry and among businesswomen. She began to fulfill that potential in her work. The key takeaway is that we aren't stuck with the limiting stories we tell ourselves. We can train our narrator to create new, truer stories that allow us to achieve more. The author then shares their own experience overcoming fears of public speaking by consciously reframing their internal narrative with help from their sister after a breakdown. Facing challenges helps rewrite limiting stories. Journaling and stating thoughts aloud can help examine where stories come from and question whether they are still true or limiting. Accepting uncertainty enables change and growth versus being stuck in the past. Choosing action over passivity is taking responsibility for changing things that are not ideal rather than accepting the status quo. It's always easier to do nothing. When you admit that reality is not fixed and can be changed by changing how we think, the onus is on us to act on issues we care about and pursue our goals. This requires interrogating our limiting beliefs and stories to get a clearer picture of problems. Then we must work to reimagine new solutions. Hugh Hare is an example who reimagined his life after losing his legs. He invented new prosthetics, studied engineering, and now helps many regain mobility. His story continues to evolve. We are all capable of examining our lives, identifying limiting stories, and reimagining new possibilities. Embracing uncertainty and resisting fear allows us to become different people and achieve more than we think. The book relies on ideas from many thinkers and writers to synthesize its concepts. Coaching also helped the authors understand how thinking impacts performance. Here is a summary of the books. Limitless Mind, Learn, Lead, and Live Without Barriers by R. Joe. 2019, focuses on overcoming mental barriers and limitations to achieve one's full potential. Alien Thinking, The Unconventional Path to Breakthrough Ideas by Cyril Bouquet, Jean-Louis Barsu, and Michael Wade, 2021, explores generating unconventional and innovative ideas through alternative thinking approaches. The Runaway Species, How Human Creativity Remakes the World by David Eagleman and Anthony Brandt, 2017, examines how human creativity and innovation have dramatically reshaped the world throughout history. Creativity, The Human Brain in the Age of Innovation by Elkonin Goldberg, 2018, analyzes the neuroscience of creativity and how the brain generates new ideas. Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know by Adam Grant, 2021, advocates rethinking beliefs and assumptions to gain new perspectives. Uncharted, How to Navigate the Future by Margaret Heffernan, 2020, provides guidance for navigating an uncertain future through flexibility, collaboration and open-mindedness. Where Good Ideas Come From, The Natural History of Innovation by Stephen Johnson, 2010, traces how innovation occurs across domains through combination and cross-pollination of ideas. Wired to Create, Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind by Scott Barry Kaufman and Carolyn Gregoire, 2015, explores the cognitive and neurological foundations of creativity. Seeing What Others Don't, The Remarkable Ways We Gain Insights by Gary Klein, 2013, examines intuitive decision-making and gaining unique insights through varied experiences. The Power of Experiments, Decision-Making in a Data-Driven World by Michael Luca and Max H. Bazerman, 2020, advocates using experimentation and data to improve decisions. The Opposable Mind, How Successful Leaders Win Through Integrative Thinking by Roger Martin, 2007, presents a framework for considering opposing viewpoints to resolve contradictions. Here are the summaries of the sources cited in the text. Cobb, Idea of the Brain, 185, no summary provided. This source is cited but not discussed. Bujicki, Brain, 102, no summary provided. This source is cited but not discussed. Karl Popper, philosopher of science known for quip that good tests kill flawed theories, we remain alive to guess again. Argued conjectures in our minds allow us to test strategies without consequences. Bujicki, Brain, 347, no summary provided. This source is cited but not discussed. Pearl and Mackenzie, Book of Why, 22-27, no summary provided. This source is cited but not discussed. Barbara Tversky, Mind in Motion, discusses how action shapes thought. Sigmund, The Secret Life of the Mind, Mlodinow, Subliminal, discuss unconscious mechanisms of the mind. Goldberg, Creativity, discusses creativity. Fleming articles, discuss self-awareness and metacognition. Barrett, How Emotions Are Made, argues emotions are constructed in the brain. Hugh Hare interviews, discusses Hare's work developing prosthetics. Let me know if you need any of the summaries expanded upon. Here is a summary of the key points from pages 509 to 519 in Walter Isaacson's book Einstein, His Life and Universe. Einstein moved to Princeton in 1933 to escape Nazi Germany and took a position at the newly established Institute for Advanced Study. He lived in Princeton for the rest of his life. At the institute, Einstein had no teaching responsibilities, which allowed him to pursue his research without pressures. However, he struggled to make progress on his efforts to develop a unified field theory. Einstein enjoyed life in Princeton in the quiet academic environment. He became known for riding his bicycle around town wearing shabby clothes. Towards the end of his life, Einstein expressed frustration that he had not yet achieved a unified field theory, which was his goal of integrating electromagnetism and gravity into a single theoretical framework. Einstein maintained a steady stream of correspondence with scientists around the world. He also kept up with the latest developments in quantum mechanics despite his philosophical disagreement with some of its concepts. Einstein was known for his genius but also his humanity. He was curious, gentle, and dedicated to helping others however he could through his fame and influence. He cared deeply about social justice, pacifism, and Israel. Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76 after suffering from internal bleeding caused by the rupture of an abdominal aortic aneurysm. He remained devoted to his work and ideals until the end of his life. The brain is constantly creating narratives and stories to make sense of experiences and form ideas. It simulates reality and generates possibilities. Non-conscious and subconscious thought, including through neurotransmitters, heavily influence the stories we tell ourselves. Neuroplasticity also shapes these narratives over time. We must separate objective facts from subjective stories and memories, recognizing that complete objectivity and certainty are impossible. Intuition needs to be balanced with reason. Different regions of the brain are involved in storytelling and idea formation. Exposure to outside input and peer perspectives can help generate novel ideas and possibilities. Contemplating paradoxes, questioning assumptions, and maintaining an open mind can help us think more creatively and push back on default narratives. Looking for novelty is also important. Training the brain through practices like public speaking, reading, and spending time with diverse groups of people provides alternative narratives and viewpoints. Mindfulness of thought patterns helps make the narrator an ally. Regularly reflecting on and potentially rewriting our internal stories, without clinging to fixed views, allows for personal growth and more positive outcomes. An attitude of continuous learning is important.